In 1960, the ocean didn't just test boats, it broke them. Waves towered, hulls cracked, engines failed. And yet one boat didn't just survive the Miami-Nassau race, it finished nearly 2 hours ahead of everyone else. That boat was moppy. And it wasn't just faster, it was different. Beneath the spray and speed was a new kind of hull, one so radical it would change powerboating forever. This is the story of how a single design, dreamed up by a self-taught sailor, rewrote the rules of offshore racing and redefined what boats could do. But before we get to the man behind the revolution, and the boat that shocked the world, we need to understand just how broken powerboating was before the Deep V came along. To truly appreciate how revolutionary the Deep V hull was, we first need to understand what powerboating looked like before its arrival. In the early days of recreational and offshore powerboating, hull designs were fairly simple and often flawed. Most boats featured either flat-bottom hulls or shallow V hulls. Flat-bottom designs worked reasonably well in calm, sheltered waters like lakes or slow-moving rivers, offering stability when at rest and easier construction. Shallow V hulls with a slight angle on the bottom offered some improvement in handling small waves, but were still far from ideal. But when these boats ventured offshore, into choppy, unpredictable open water, their limitations became painfully clear. Flat-bottom boats slammed violently against waves, turning every chop into a jarring thud that sent shock through the hull and into the backs of anyone aboard. The ride was rough, exhausting, and frankly unsafe at higher speeds. Shallow V hulls offered only marginal improvement. While they cut a bit better through small waves, their flat sections still caused pounding in rough seas. Passengers felt every wave like a punch to the spine. Worse, these hulls struggled to track straight, especially in turbulent conditions. Stability was poor, and broaching, a terrifying situation where the boat spins sideways or even capsizes when hit by large following seas, was an ever-present risk. Speed was a constant trade-off. Pushing these boats fast in rough water was dangerous. Many captains had to throttle back to avoid structural damage or injury. Offshore powerboat races in the 1950s exposed these weaknesses brutally. The Miami-Nassau race, with its rough ocean conditions, became notorious for breaking hulls and ending dreams. Boats often limped to the finish line, or worse, they didn't finish at all. Clearly, the sport needed more than just powerful engines. It needed a hull design that could tame the sea, connect with the water, and deliver speed with safety and comfort. This was the challenge that C. Raymond Hunt took on. A man who believed the solution wasn't just more horsepower, it was smarter design. Before we dive into Hunt's bold solution, we'd love to hear your take. Have you ever been on a boat that slammed hard in rough water? How bad was it? Drop your stories in the comments, and if you're enjoying the journey so far, hit subscribe. There's a lot more ahead. C. Raymond Hunt wasn't an engineer by training. In fact, he was something far rarer, a natural-born innovator with an intuitive grasp of how boats should move through water. Born in 1908, Hunt never pursued formal studies in naval architecture or engineering. Instead, his education was forged on the water itself, in countless hours spent sailing, racing, and experimenting. As a teenager attending Phillips Andover Academy, he distinguished himself early, winning the prestigious Sears Cup at just 15 years old, a national junior sailing competition that marked him as a rising talent. By his 20s, Hunt was already reshaping boat design through a combination of bold creativity and relentless trial and error. He quickly became a respected figure in the sailing community, admired not just for his skill but for his ability to see what others overlooked. Hunt's genius didn't come from mathematical formulas or technical manuals, it came from intuition. He had an innate sense of how water interacted with a hull, how shapes affected stability, speed, and comfort. He could visualize the dynamics at play beneath the surface, sensing what would perform best in real-world conditions. Through the 1940s and 1950s, Hunt applied this talent across a diverse array of vessels. He designed the Concordia yawl, an elegant, graceful sailing yacht celebrated worldwide for its unmatched balance and seaworthiness. He also collaborated on developing the iconic Boston Whaler, a boat revolutionary for its unsinkable construction and innovative twin-sponson hull design. Yet, despite these successes, Hunt's greatest challenge and greatest achievement still lay ahead. Offshore racing had exposed serious flaws in existing powerboat designs. Instead of accepting these limitations, Hunt began to question the very fundamentals of hull design. He asked himself a seemingly simple, yet groundbreaking question. What if, instead of slamming against the waves, boats could slice through them? This seemingly simple question sparked an innovation that would redefine boating forever. It wasn't just an idea, it was the birth of a hull shape unlike any other, the Deep V. The Deep V hull wasn't born from a sudden flash of genius. It evolved methodically from years of careful experimentation. Hunt was always driven by a simple, powerful goal: soften the punishing ride of boats racing through heavy seas. His approach was meticulous. He sketched countless shapes, built prototypes, tested them relentlessly, then adjusted and refined again. He sought a precise balance, combining speed with control, comfort with strength. By the late 1950s, after a decade of refinement, Hunt's vision began to solidify. He recognized something crucial: a dramatically sharper V-shaped bottom, known to naval architects as increased dead rise, could revolutionize the way a hull moved through water. At the time, most hulls had only modest dead rise angles, typically between 5 and 15 degrees. Hunt boldly pushed this number further, right up to an unprecedented 24 degrees at the transom. This was revolutionary. The steep, knife-like entry allowed the hull to slice cleanly through waves, rather than slamming into them and bouncing violently. The deep angle improved tracking and stability, significantly reducing yaw and roll in rough water conditions. Hunt didn't stop there. He introduced another key innovation: longitudinal lift strips, or strakes, running the length of the hull. These strakes helped the boat quickly lift onto plane, further reducing drag and increasing speed. His first major Deep V prototype, the 23-foot wooden boat named Sea Blitz, launched in 1949, demonstrated promising performance and hinted at the Deep V's vast potential. But the true breakthrough, the ultimate proof of his visionary design, emerged a decade later in a boat called Moppy. Commissioned by Richard Bertram, an ambitious boat dealer and experienced offshore racer, Moppy represented the purest realization of Hunt's Deep V innovation. Measuring 30 feet and propelled by powerful twin engines, Moppy wasn't just built for racing. She was designed to change racing itself. And in 1960, she finally got her chance. The 1960 Miami-Nassau race had a fearsome reputation even before it began. Known as one of the toughest offshore powerboat competitions in the world, the race spanned 184 punishing miles from Florida to the Bahamas, pushing crews, engines, and hulls to their absolute limits. That year, conditions were especially brutal. Relentless winds churned waves into towering, violent swells, turning the ocean into an unforgiving battlefield. Many competitors never made it to Nassau. Boats broke apart mid-race, hulls shattered by merciless seas, and engines faltered under relentless strain. Those who continued did so cautiously, throttling back dramatically to preserve their boats and themselves. But Moppy, with Hunt's revolutionary deep V hull beneath her, was different. She didn't just withstand the harsh conditions, she mastered them. As other boats struggled, Hunt's design revealed its brilliance. With the deep V cutting cleanly into the waves, Moppy maintained astonishing speeds. Instead of slamming violently against each swell, she sliced gracefully through, offering her crew a controlled, stable ride. As the race progressed, Moppy steadily extended her lead, leaving competitors far behind. After nearly 8 relentless hours at sea, Moppy crossed the finish line, nearly 2 hours ahead of her closest rival. Her dominant victory wasn't just remarkable, it was revolutionary. Suddenly, the entire boating community took notice. News of the race and of the remarkable deep V hull spread quickly. Even Sports Illustrated ran a detailed feature, capturing the imagination of boaters and builders everywhere. Richard Bertram, the visionary behind Moppy's commission, immediately saw potential beyond racing. Recognizing that Hunt's hull could transform recreational boating, he quickly adapted Moppy's design into a mass-produced fiberglass model, the Bertram 31. Launched in 1961, it became one of the most iconic and beloved sport fishing boats of all time, kickstarting a design revolution. But why exactly was the Deep V so successful? What made this one design radically different and far superior to everything else on the water? Hunt's Deep V hull wasn't just a refinement of existing ideas, it was a fundamental shift in how boats interacted with the sea. For the first time, powerboaters had a design that didn't force them to choose between speed and comfort, or between performance and safety. The Deep V changed the game on every front. First, comfort. Traditional hulls, flat or shallow V, tended to slam violently into waves, especially at higher speeds. Every crest felt like a collision, wearing down both the boat and its passengers. The Deep V's sharp entry angle allowed it to cut through waves rather than pound against them. The result? A ride that was not just faster, but significantly smoother and more forgiving, especially in rough water. Second, stability. Hunt's Deep V featured variable deadrise and wide chinese, subtle design choices that had a huge impact. These boats rolled less at rest, held their lines better underway, and tracked straighter through crosswinds and following seas. Even in confused waters, the hull maintained directional stability, giving the captain more confidence and control. Third, efficiency. With the addition of longitudinal lift strips, strakes along the bottom, the hull generated lift more quickly and reduced wetted surface area. That meant the boats could plane faster, cruise more efficiently, and waste less energy pushing against water resistance. Fuel economy improved, and boats stayed nimble even at high speeds. Fourth, safety. Offshore boating is unforgiving. Hulls that yaw, broach, or lose traction can spell disaster. The Deep V's geometry prevented those tendencies, allowing boats to hold their course in big seas. That wasn't just a comfort, it was a life-saving innovation. Finally, versatility. The Deep V design wasn't limited to racing. It proved ideal for sport fishing boats, family cruisers, commercial water taxis, and even military patrol vessels. The US Navy and Coast Guard adopted versions of Hunt's hull for their high-speed operations because they needed speed, but also control and reliability in any sea state. In short, the Deep V wasn't just better, it became the benchmark, a new standard in marine design that others would follow for generations. After the triumph of Moppy and the commercial success of the Bertram 31, it didn't take long for the rest of the boating world to catch on. Hunt's Deep V design wasn't a passing trend. It became the foundation upon which modern powerboating was built. Virtually overnight, the Deep V hull turned from a radical experiment into an industry blueprint. Boat manufacturers across the globe began adapting Hunt's principles, tweaking angles, modifying Chinese, but always coming back to the core formula: a steep dead rise, a sharp entry, and a hull that could tame rough seas without sacrificing performance. Some of the biggest names in boating owe a significant part of their DNA to Hunt's innovation. Brands like Boston Whaler, Grady White, Pursuit, and dozens more integrated deep V geometry into their sport fishing models, family cruisers, and high-performance offshore vessels. Even boaters who had never heard of C. Raymond Hunt were unknowingly riding in hulls shaped by his legacy. But the story didn't stop with fiberglass sport fishers. C. Raymond Hunt Associates, the design firm Hunt founded, continued to evolve the Deep V well after his passing in 1978. Under the leadership of naval architects like Wynne Willard, the firm pushed the concept further, adapting the Deep V to modern propulsion systems, including stern drives, pod drives, and water jets. They refined the shape for increased fuel efficiency, added composite construction techniques, and improved handling at low speeds, all while preserving the hull's core DNA. The influence extended beyond the recreational boating world. The Deep V found its way into commercial ferries, fast response rescue craft, and elite military vessels. When the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard needed high-speed patrol boats capable of operating in any sea condition, they turned to Hunt's Deep V designs. In 2017, the industry finally gave the man behind it all his due. C. Raymond Hunt was posthumously inducted into the National Sailing Hall of Fame, not just for his racing achievements or beautiful yachts, but for a design that revolutionized boating across every category. His legacy lives on, not just in museums or magazines, but in every Deep V hull skimming across a bay, chasing the horizon. C. Raymond Hunt didn't just design a new hull. He reimagined how boats could work with the ocean instead of fighting against it. And in doing so, he left behind more than just blueprints. He left a philosophy. One boat, one idea, one race. C. Raymond Hunt's Deep V hull didn't just change powerboating, it elevated it. It transformed spine-rattling, exhausting offshore slogs into smooth, controlled adventures. It turned risky endurance races into manageable, even enjoyable challenges. And it brought a new level of performance and safety to everyday boating. It's rare for a single design to remain relevant for over 60 years. Even rarer for it to stand as the undisputed gold standard. But Hunt's Deep V wasn't just a breakthrough. It was the answer to a question no one else dared to ask. How do you truly master the sea? His answer was simple but profound. Start with the hull. So next time you watch a boat effortlessly slice through the waves, steady and sure, remember where that story began. With one man, one vision, and a hull that changed everything. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing. We've got more legends from the water coming soon, from iconic boat designs to the engineers who dared to dream differently. And in the comments, have you ever ridden in a true Deep V hull? What did it feel like? Or better yet, what boat would you like us to cover next? Thanks for watching, and keep riding the waves of innovation.